Today I'm going to go over my review of the new firmware update of this guy right here, of course, which we are talking about is the Canon EOS C70. What's going on, everybody? James Jackson here, back again with another video. If you're new to my channel, I do tips, tricks, news, and reviews for the film and video making industry. So if this is content that you like, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell so you stay up to date on all the content going forth. So it's been about a couple weeks since this firmware that for all of us who are C70 owners have been highly anticipating, and I gotta say I absolutely love this firmware update. I haven't really dabbled into the intermediates and the frame recording options, which are like the stop motion and the time-lapse options. I will make if you guys are very interested in those modes, I'll go ahead and make a video on those separately. But I really wanted to talk about the meat and potatoes of this firmware, which is those new raw recording options, which I gotta be honest, originally when I first heard this, I couldn't believe it when it happened, but it's now finally here. And I have to say, there's been a lot of thoughts about it. Is it worth the upgrade? Do you really see a noticeable difference between MXFAVC? And if you guys saw my breakdown video, basically, is there a difference? Yes. But depending on the type of shooter you are, I don't know if you guys will make most of the difference. For someone like me, who is not only a filmmaker, but also someone who is very keen on making specific grades and does color grades and makes their own LUTs, this firmware update is fantastic. I've now also put this on a couple shoots where I filmed raw on. I actually did a series of talking head interviews with this camera shooting raw. Unfortunately, I can't show you guys the footage because that project is not complete yet. But I do have some footages from elsewhere that I've used that I'll definitely give you guys to take a look at. Overall, what I will say about the raw options, I found fascinating two things. Number one is the fact that I didn't bring this up in the breakdown, but obviously it's the recording medium, obviously, that you can record raw to SD cards. Now, I will say, definitely recommend you to get V90 cards for the best performances. Now, obviously, V90s are expensive, but I would definitely say get them. You can also get V60s, because I also filmed these talking heads with V60s, and they worked. However, here's the shocking one. The first thing that shocked me was you can actually record at least the raw LT in 4K 30. Not 4K 60, but 4K 30. You can record, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a V30 SD card. Not V60, not V90, but a V30 SD cards, which are stupid cheap to get. Now, and I did use this. Now, primarily, I only used that card as when all my other cards were used up, and I needed it only as the backup option. It was never the primary recording option whenever I was recording any of these projects. But it does appear to be working. There was never a hiccup. There was never a hitch when I was recording in 4K 24 frames or 4K 30. However, if you switch to 4K 60, it does run into an issue and it will stop the recording. But if all you're doing is 4K 24 frames a second, and you just maybe want to just have something as a backup, and that's really the only time I use it, with raw light, you can do it. Which says a lot about just how compressed the raw is, but also just how good the quality of this raw is. Because the fact that I can shoot 4K 60 raw to SD cards just in general, 12-bit might I add you, which, by the way, not even this guy's bigger brother, the C300 Mark III, or even its even bigger brother, the C500 Mark II, neither one of those cameras, or the C200, none of those cameras can shoot 12-bit raw at 60 frames per second. You have to go to options like the R5C or one of the other mirrorless or DSLR cameras like the 1DX and the R3 and the to get those 60 frames a second RAW recording options, which are also not as compressed, but they eat up a lot of files. The other cool thing is that you can dual record. So you can record both media cards to RAW. It is definitely possible. So that's another thing that I absolutely love about it. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at it and seeing, and I've heard some of you guys comment saying that you guys don't really see a difference, so you're probably going to stick to MXFAVC, which I totally get. And if you're just, all you're doing is someone is just looking to do quick turnarounds, you want to go in, you just want to go in and just shoot, throw a simple LUT on there and be done with it, that's fine. Or you don't want to work with like a 12-bit LUT format, which would take advantage of those RAW. However, if you're someone who's, especially filmmaker, who really loves to push the grades, I've been pushing the grades and I've just been having a blast filming and just color grading these new RAW formats. And especially now with all that metadata information from RAW, I'm able to really like fine-tune grades and even create LUTs that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable making because of the variables of filmmaking. But now I can fine tune and take a lot of those variables out just from putting in the metadata and really hone in to creating a precise LUT, which, by the way, I will say right now, I made a whole new LUT pack for these, and it will be on my digital store if it's not there already, so definitely check that out. I've just been having a blast, and one of the things that I absolutely noticed first was just how much more organic the shadows are in terms of being able to pull them up. As you saw in my video, my breakdown video, one of the big things that I immediately noticed was just how much more organic pulling up the shadows were. So I know a lot of you guys are asking, is there more dynamic range involved? The answer is technically no. There is no more dynamic range. It still has the same dynamic range. However, because of that 12-bit information, now you have the ability to have more useful dynamic range. So even though they say 16 plus stops, I think most people agree that the dynamic range usefulness is more around the 13 stops, which I know a lot of people say that seems low, but be honest with you, that's actually one of the top 3 best performing dynamic range sensors in terms of latitude performances. But we should also keep in mind that the top of the top, the gold standard of latitude performance in cameras, which is the Arri Alexa, only has 14 usable stops of dynamic range. So this having 13 is actually making it one of the premier, and I would honestly say, at least in the sub $10,000 price range, this is probably the best performing dynamic range camera that I've come across. And yes, I'm even saying that against the Komodo with that red sensor. And I'm telling you, in terms of technical dynamic range performance with now this 12-bit RAW format, I would say it is better because now you've got that extra bit depth of color. Now you still got 16-bit linear color on the red Komodo, which no camera can match. Even the Sonys that have their 16-bit linear out, no recording monitor as of right now can actually capitalize on it. So in terms of that, the reds still are king, at least in terms of the Komodo, that's still king. But if we're just talking about just latitude performance, shadows are super clean, it's got a smooth highlight roll off. This is an amazing sensor, and it's only been made even better with this RAW update. There's only a few downsides, I would say, regarding the C70 and this firmware. One of them is that when you're in the RAW format, you cannot use the digital IS, which makes sense. It's a processing, and there's no processing when it comes to RAW. So that totally makes sense. And to be frank, all the other Canon cinema cameras that actually have digital IS, that's turned off when you use RAW. So it's not that much of a difference. The big one that I would say, Canon, if you could figure out a way to make this work, I would greatly appreciate it, is the fact that the slow and fast motion is disengaged as well, which to me, that's disappointing and it doesn't quite make sense. And I would love to know the reason why that was disengaged, because basically every other camera, the Blackmagic cameras, you can use the overcrank slow motion, or even Reds, you can overcrank and you can record and get that automatic slow motion conversion shooting Reds. For some reason, you can't do this on this camera, and I would love to know why, and if there's a way to make that happen, that's what I would love to see. Final thoughts, the only other thing I would say is I did a quick shot of the 2K option. I will say the ST and LT of the 2K Super 16 is not really worth it. The HQ, on the other hand, to me is definitely worth it, especially if you have the speed booster, because now that takes that format from Super 16 to Micro Four Thirds. So, which I will give me a chance to do some test footage with other cameras, like this new camera that I'm now announcing that I have, which is the GH6. I would love to see how that performs, and I haven't done that yet, but I will just say, with right glass, and if you have good, seriously, good glass, the 2K option is definitely usable if you want just something a little bit more smaller in file sizes, especially with that HQ mode. It's definitely worth it. Overall, my final thoughts are, this has been an absolutely amazing update with this camera, and I am so excited to finally have RAW and being back in a RAW workflow. I have missed it so much since I've sort of just been using this almost exclusively now for a few months, and now I've got probably one of the best compact cinema cameras on the market in general with this new feature, and I cannot wait to just go ahead and just really continue to figure out ways to push this camera to its extremes. But that does it for me. I would love to hear from you guys what exactly you guys think about it. Do you have the C70? Did you update to the firmware? What are your thoughts on the firmware? Let me know. Make sure to leave a comment below. And as always, please make sure to hit a like so the likes can help bring up the algorithm and boost this channel up. And as always, until next time, take care, everyone.